In this third example, we're going to look at something that can sometimes throw some students. A different equation for our hyperbola slightly. Two divided by 3 minus x plus 1. Normally we'd have x minus something in our denominator on our fraction. What we need to do is to turn this into the form that we're more familiar with before we start drawing the graph. The way we turn a negative x into a positive x is we multiply the bottom of the fraction by negative 1. But in order to keep the fraction the same, we have to multiply both top and bottom by negative 1. So our equation becomes y equals negative 1 times 2 over negative 1 times 3 minus x plus 1. Notice that the plus 1 is not being multiplied by negative 1. We're only doing it to the fraction. That means our equation becomes y equals negative 2 over x minus 3 plus 1. This shows us that even though we had a positive number at the top, in actual fact this is a negative hyperbola. So we can immediately write down that it's negative, which means that it'll be, the two curves will be in this quadrant and this quadrant. We have 3 minus x, the bottom can never be 0, so therefore x can never be 3, so therefore our first asymptote is going to be at the line x equals 3. This fraction can never be, this fraction can never be 0, so we know that y can never equal 0 plus 1, so our second asymptote is simply the line y equals 1. To determine our, well, I'll draw those in. X equals 3 is this line here. So that's the line x equals 3, y equals 1 is there. To determine where it cuts the axis, first of all we set x equal to 0, so we get the equation y equals minus 2 over minus 3 plus 1, which means that y is going to equal 1 2/3. That's where it's going to intercept the y-axis. Intercept the y-axis. To determine where it intercepts the x-axis, we set y equal to 0, so we end up with, I'll do it over here, 0 equals negative 2 over x minus 3 plus 1. We have to subtract 1 from both sides. Negative 1 equals negative 2 over x minus 3. Multiply through by x minus 3. We end up with negative x plus 3 equals negative 2. Subtract 3 from both sides. Negative x equals negative 5, which means that x equals 5. Okay, so we have x equal to 5 as one of our intercepts, it's about there, and we have y equals 1 2/3, which is about there. We know where our curves are going to be. It's a negative hyperbola, so it's going to be in the top left and the bottom right. So our hyperbola is going to look something like that. and something like that. And we would mark in our points, 5, and we'd have 1 and 2/3. A bit neater than that perhaps. And that's a more difficult hyperbola.